I've never really considered myself an overly emotional guy. I don't go looking for chaos. I've always been more of a logic-driven person, methodical, grounded, maybe even a little boring by some standards. My name's Ethan Myers. I'm 48 years old, and I live in a quiet suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina. 2 grown kids, a modest but comfortable house, and a career that pays the bills without keeping me up at night. For most of my adult life, I thought I had everything figured out. No surprises, no drama. Just a life built on consistency. My wife, April, is the kind of woman who draws attention without asking for it. She has this effortless presence, like someone out of an old film. Smart, polished, always a little emotionally distant in a way that made her feel untouchable. She works in antique estate evaluations. It suits her, honestly. She's got an eye for detail and this calm, almost surgical way of analyzing things. People respected her, admired her even. And so did I. We'd been married for nearly 24 years. That number feels so heavy now. You don't get to that point by accident. You live through job changes, raising kids, money stress, illness, everything. You survive all of it. And we had. At least I thought we had. But if I'm being honest, there were cracks. Not ones you see right away. Ours wasn't a screaming, broken plate kind of marriage. We didn't have those explosive arguments people warn you about. What we had was quieter. Distance disguised as peace. A slow, silent drift you don't notice until one day you realize you're on opposite ends of the bed, both staring at the ceiling, miles apart in your heads. Still, we managed. There was affection, loyalty, a shared sense of duty. And I always respected her boundaries, even when they confused me. There was one line in particular, an aspect of intimacy she never crossed. She made it clear early on that it was off-limits. No negotiation. At first, I thought maybe it would change with time, as our trust grew. But it never did. 24 years and not once. I didn't press. I didn't guilt her or make her feel bad. I figured love meant acceptance, even when it came with sacrifice. So I accepted it. Or I told myself I did. And then, 2 weeks ago, it happened. It was a Wednesday night, late. I'd just gotten out of the shower. April was in bed, reading something on her tablet. The air smelled like her lavender lotion, and for a second, everything felt normal. But then she put her tablet down, looked over at me, and gave me this look I hadn't seen from her in years. Bold. Intentional. Not the kind of look you give your husband of 2 decades when you're just trying to be nice. She said nothing. Just moved toward me. Took control. And for the first time in over 20 years, she did the very thing she'd always said no to. No hesitation. No discomfort. Just certainty. I didn't know what to do. I should have said something, asked what changed, but I didn't want to break the moment. Maybe a part of me was afraid that if I spoke, she'd stop and go back to the old lines we used to live behind. So I let it happen. And it wasn't just that she did it, it was how. Confident. Like she'd been doing it for years, just not with me. Afterward, she didn't say much. Just a quiet, satisfied smile and a comment about how tired she was. She rolled over and went to sleep, like it was just another Wednesday. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling fan, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I wanted to believe it was a breakthrough. That she'd finally felt close enough to me to open up in that way. That maybe we'd turned a corner after all these years. Then Saturday came. It happened again. This time, even more confidently. No warm-up, no questions, just the same quiet decisiveness. And again afterward, she gave me that smirk. Not affectionate. Not shy. Something else. It felt performative. Detached. Like she wasn't really there with me. Like I was just part of a scene she was reenacting from somewhere else. I finally asked her, half jokingly, "So, what changed?" She looked at me and said, with this strange little smile, "I don't know. I guess I'm just feeling adventurous lately." That word, adventurous, hit me harder than it should have. Not because I didn't want her to explore or grow or try new things, but because it didn't feel like it was about me. It didn't feel like a we thing. It felt like she was on a solo journey, and I was just an obstacle she briefly decided to include. I spent the next few days in a fog, trying to shake the feeling. I went to work, sat through meetings, handled client calls, but my mind kept going back to those 2 nights. I kept asking myself the same question over and over again. Why now? Because I'd made peace with the no. I had. I'd buried that part of myself a long time ago. To hurt her. But I loved her and I thought that was enough. So for her to suddenly say yes, not just yes, but like that, without a single conversation, without so much as an ounce of vulnerability or shared understanding, it rattled something in me. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a breakthrough. It was a rupture. She didn't just change. Something had been changed in her. And I had no idea by what, or by who. That's when I stopped trying to explain it away. I stopped trying to justify it or tell myself it was some long-awaited evolution in our relationship. Because love shouldn't feel like a performance. And intimacy shouldn't feel like it's been rehearsed with someone else. And so, in that quiet space of confusion, doubt, and a pain I couldn't name yet, a seed was planted. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. But I started watching. Because deep down, I knew something was already happening behind my back. And now that I'd seen the crack in the wall, I couldn't unsee it. I didn't sleep much the night after that second time. April was curled up next to me, breathing softly, like she didn't have a care in the world. Meanwhile, I lay there with my eyes wide open, staring into the dark, my brain twisting itself into knots. I wasn't just confused, I was starting to feel something deeper. Like betrayal was creeping up on me, slowly wrapping its fingers around my neck. But I had nothing solid. Just a gut feeling. A shift in energy. That was all. And I knew better than to start a war based on a hunch. So I didn't say anything. I didn't accuse her. I didn't cry or beg for the truth. Instead, I got methodical. 2 weeks before any of this happened, I'd already started sensing something off about her. It wasn't anything dramatic, just small, almost imperceptible changes. She started coming home later than usual, sometimes with a story that didn't quite line up. She was using her work phone more, locking it even though she never used to bother. She began humming in the shower, something she hadn't done in years. It was like she was floating in her own little world. So back then, before I even had a reason to think infidelity, I'd bought a small, motion-triggered camera on a whim. Not because I suspected cheating, but because I felt like I was losing touch with what was going on inside my own house. I needed to feel like I wasn't going crazy. I installed it in the upstairs bathroom, tucked neatly behind a stack of hand towels on the shelf across from the mirror. It wasn't perfect, but it gave me a clear view of the hallway and part of the bedroom door when it was open. Again, I wasn't trying to catch her in the act. I just needed confirmation. Of something. Anything. That camera sat there for 2 weeks. I checked it every few days, but nothing came up. Just the regular mundane rhythms of our lives. Her brushing her hair, me shaving, both of us moving through the motions like normal married people. Then the change happened. That week of intimacy, the sudden, uncharacteristic behavior. That's when everything inside me went still. Like my body was moving, but the rest of me was standing outside of it, just watching. I was polite. I played the part. We had dinner. We watched Netflix like nothing was wrong. But behind the scenes, I was unraveling. Quietly. Carefully. I needed more. Something concrete. So I made up a business trip. Told April I had a 2-day training conference down in Charlotte, something last minute from work. She barely blinked. Said she'd miss me, but that she could use a quiet weekend to get caught up on evaluations. I played it cool. Kissed her goodbye. Packed an overnight bag. Even let her drive me to the Amtrak station so it looked real. As soon as she pulled away, I circled back to my car parked 2 blocks away. I'd booked a motel just off the Beltline. Nothing fancy, just somewhere cheap with solid Wi-Fi and blackout curtains. That night, I cracked open my laptop and pulled up the camera feed. I watched the house sit empty for hours. April didn't get home until almost 6:45. She pulled into the driveway, casually got out, and unlocked the front door. Everything looked normal. She kicked off her shoes, poured herself a glass of wine. I almost started second-guessing myself. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe this was just a midlife shift. Maybe I was the one creating ghosts out of shadows. But then, around 7:30, it happened. A man appeared. I'll never forget what he looked like, broad-shouldered, tall, maybe early 50s, with a short salt and pepper beard and a ball cap pulled low over his eyes. He was dressed like he was trying not to be noticed, but there was something oddly familiar about his posture, his confidence as he approached the door and rang the bell like he belonged there. April opened it within seconds. And the way she smiled at him, it wasn't neutral. It wasn't polite. It was the kind of smile that had intention behind it. The kind I hadn't seen in years. She stepped aside, let him in, and just like that, they disappeared down the hallway. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might black out. I stared at the screen, willing myself to look away, but I couldn't. The hallway view gave me glimpses, flashes. Clothes coming off in motion. A door clicking shut. I couldn't hear anything, there was no audio, but I didn't need sound to understand what I was watching. I closed the laptop and just sat there in the motel room, my hands shaking. I don't even know how long I stared at the blank screen. An hour? 2? I felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to my chest. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw things. I just sat in it. In the knowledge. In the confirmation that my marriage, the life I had given everything to, was now something else entirely. And even then, I wasn't ready to confront her. I wasn't finished collecting the truth. I didn't sleep that night. Not a single minute. I lay on the cheap motel mattress, stiff as a corpse, the ceiling spinning in slow, deliberate circles. I kept replaying it, April's smile, the way she stepped aside without hesitation, how familiar it all felt to them. Like it wasn't new. Like they had done this exact thing before, probably more than once. And it hit me in waves. This wasn't some wild, impulsive one-night stand. This was a routine. The next morning, I ordered coffee from the motel lobby, choked it down, and got to work. I emailed a private investigator whose name came highly recommended in a few Raleigh forums. Discreet, experienced, and most importantly, fast. We met that afternoon at a gas station parking lot like we were doing something illegal, which, to be fair, wasn't far off. His name was Leo. Wore mirrored sunglasses and carried himself like someone who'd seen every kind of lie. I told him everything. Well, not everything. I didn't mention the camera. I didn't want to come across as the paranoid husband who lost his mind over a look and a smirk. I just said I suspected infidelity and needed help confirming it. Leo didn't blink. He just nodded, handed me a retainer form, and said, "Give me a week." I gave him 3 days. While Leo started tailing April, I kept doing my own digging. I went through her public emails, checked our shared calendar, her car's GPS history, even the Amazon order history. That's when I saw something strange, 2 back-to-back purchases made under her account but delivered to a different address. A P.O. box across town. One package was labeled as archival materials. The other was just personal effects. Both arrived the week before the first change in her behavior. That felt too coincidental. I forwarded the info to Leo, and he told me he'd look into it. 2 days later, I had a folder sitting in my inbox. And I'll be honest, I wasn't ready for what I saw. Photos. Dozens of them. April and the same man, tall, bearded, always in that goddamn ball cap, meeting during the day, sometimes at job sites, sometimes outside storage units or warehouses. At one point, they met in front of a tiny brick building in Durham labeled Heritage Restoration Group. Leo circled the signage in red. "This guy's name is Nolan Price," Leo said during our next call. "He works as a consultant for restoration and historical research. Looks like he's collaborated with your wife's agency on multiple properties." I stared at Nolan's face. There was something incredibly normal about him. The kind of guy you'd see at the hardware store. Slightly wrinkled button-downs. Worn boots. A solid, forgettable presence. But in every single photo, April looked alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. Smiling. Hands brushing his shoulder. At one point, he touched the small of her back while they were reading something off a clipboard. I asked Leo, "Is this enough?" He didn't hesitate. "It's more than enough. But I've got one more thing coming. Audio." I had a recorder placed under the passenger's seat of her car. That made me pause. Is that legal? It's a one-party consent state. You hired me. You're one party. It's legal. 2 days later, Leo sent the audio files through a secure link. My hands trembled as I clicked play on the first one. It was April and Nolan in her car, laughing. There was some wind noise, some rumbling, but the voices were clear enough. I skipped ahead through the small talk. Something about a mansion in Apex, then a story about a cracked stained glass panel, and then, there it was. April, I feel stupid, you know? I avoided that stuff for half my life. I told Ethan no for 24 years and then you, she laughed, you make it feel like breathing. Like I was just scared for no reason. Nolan, guess I'm persuasive. April, guess I needed it. I mean, it's ridiculous how predictable he is. Always the same 3 moves in bed. Always asking if I'm okay after. Like I'm made of glass. She laughed again. And I sat there, frozen, earbuds burning into my ears. I didn't even realize I was crying until I tasted salt. Not a sobbing, dramatic cry, just a slow, steady leak, like something in me had finally ruptured for good. I played the clip back 3 times. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I needed to absorb it. To let it scrape all the way through my chest. It wasn't just about sex. It was the way she spoke about me. With this mixture of pity and amusement, like I was a project she'd outgrown. And yet, some sick part of me still wanted her to explain. Still hoped for a version of the truth that didn't make me feel like some footnote in her story. I didn't get it. Instead, I got proof. Undeniable, unforgiving, cold truth. I closed the file, powered down the laptop, and sat there in silence. I knew what I had to do next. But I also knew this wasn't just about me anymore. It was time to tell our kids. Telling the kids was the one thing I kept putting off. Not because I didn't think they deserved to know, but because I didn't want to see the hurt in their eyes. I didn't want to be the reason their picture of their mother shattered. But I also knew I couldn't keep them in the dark. That wouldn't be fair, to them or to me. They were adults now. Ava was 21, just finishing up her pre-med undergrad at UNC, and Jake was 23, halfway through a grad program in fintech at NC State. Smart, driven, good kids. They'd always looked up to their mother. She was the steady one, the elegant one. She taught them how to cook, how to stand up straight, how to shake hands with intention. They adored her. I think that's what made it so hard. I waited until the end of the week. Picked a Saturday morning, texted them the night before and asked if we could meet for lunch somewhere near campus. No big reason, I said. Just wanted to check in and hear how they were doing. No one questioned it. They probably thought I was just feeling sentimental. We met at this little cafe near the university bookstore, brick walls, quiet booths, the kind of place students go to study with overpriced lattes. Jake got there first. He gave me a quick hug, looked tired but sharp, always had that focused intensity. Ava showed up 10 minutes later, hair pulled back in a loose bun, hoodie half-zipped, eyes a little red like she hadn't slept much either. They both looked older than I remembered. I didn't waste time with small talk. I asked if we could move to the corner booth, away from the windows. Once we sat down, I just looked at them for a long second. Neither of them said anything, like they already sensed something was wrong. I need to tell you both something, I said. My voice came out calm, level, like I'd rehearsed it 100 times in my head. It's about your mother and me. Ava immediately stiffened. Jake leaned forward, arms crossed, waiting. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, I continued. Something's been going on. For a while now, actually. Your mom's been seeing someone else. Silence. Just a deep, sudden stillness between the 3 of us. You could have heard a pin drop, even over the espresso machine and indie music playing overhead. Ava blinked a few times, like the words weren't quite real. Then she whispered, "What do you mean, seeing someone?" Jake, on the other hand, didn't move. His jaw tightened. He didn't ask for clarification. I think he understood right away. She's having an affair, I said quietly. With someone from her work. His name is Nolan Price. He's a consultant she's worked with on a few evaluations. Ava's eyes welled up. She shook her head slowly. No, that doesn't sound like her. Are you sure? I am, I said. I've seen it. I've had someone confirm it. Pictures, recordings. I wouldn't be telling you if I wasn't absolutely certain. Jake leaned back in his seat and let out this hollow little laugh. Just one sharp breath, bitter and cold. Jesus Christ. Ava started crying. Not loud. Just quiet, broken tears that she wiped away with the sleeve of her hoodie. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I didn't want to bring this into your lives, not like this. But I also didn't want to lie to you. I know how much you love her. I'm not asking you to stop. I need you to know the truth. She wouldn't even let you touch her half the time, Jake muttered, voice low. And now she's out screwing some history nerd? Jake, Ava snapped, through tears. Don't. No, he said, his voice rising. Don't defend her. You know what Dad's saying is true. You've seen it. She's been distant for years. She's still our mom, Ava said softly. Yeah, he replied. A mom who just blew up our family. I let them sit with it. Let the pain settle because I knew they needed to feel it, same as I had. There wasn't anything I could say to fix it, to soften the edge. I wasn't here to make it easier. I just didn't want them to feel blindsided later, when everything came crashing down in court documents and moving trucks. After a while, Ava leaned in. What are you going to do? I've already started the divorce process, I said. This isn't something I can work through. I gave her 24 years of my life. I think that's enough. They both nodded, but slowly, like they were still trying to catch up with the timeline of it all. I didn't go into graphic detail. I didn't show them the photos or play the audio. That was for me, not them. I told them what they needed to know, that this wasn't an accident or a drunken mistake. That it was ongoing. Deliberate. When the check came, Jake paid without a word. Ava gave me a long, shaking hug, and for the first time since I started digging into this nightmare, I felt a flicker of something, like maybe I wasn't going to come out of this completely broken. We walked out into the daylight together. No dramatic goodbyes, no speeches. Just three people standing at the edge of something they never expected to face. I knew it would get worse before it got better. But at least now, I wasn't the only one carrying the weight. After I told the kids, I expected everything else to feel easier by comparison. It didn't. If anything, it got heavier. The shock had been absorbed by their silence, their tears, and Jake's clenched fists. But once I was alone again, it all came back. Stronger. Meaner. Like a second wave that didn't care how prepared I thought I was. I spent that Sunday walking. Miles through trails near the lake, down empty neighborhoods where no one would look twice at a guy in jeans and a worn-out hoodie pacing like he'd misplaced his whole life. And I kept thinking, how many people know? Because once something like this happens, once you discover you've been played, it's not just the betrayal that guts you. It's the creeping suspicion that other people saw it before you did. That the signs were never truly hidden, just ignored. That thought kept me up at night. So I made a decision. I didn't want revenge. Not exactly. But I wanted answers. I wanted to take control of the narrative, even if it meant pulling back the curtains on someone else's life too. That's when I thought about him. Nolan Price. If April had betrayed me, then someone else had probably been betrayed too. I dug through Leo's report again. Buried in the last few pages was a name, Harper Price. Married. Listed as Nolan's spouse on a property deed they shared up in Carborough. No kids, one shared mortgage, and a business address listed under her name, some boutique coffee shop near the University Museum. The next day I drove there. It was a warm afternoon, sun spilling down through the windshield like it was trying to make the day feel normal. I parked 2 blocks away and sat there for a few minutes, trying to work out exactly what I was going to say. Hi, I'm the guy your husband is screwing over by sleeping with my wife. Hey, just thought you should know you're not the only one married to a liar. It all sounded ridiculous in my head. But I wasn't there to be elegant. I was there because I needed someone, anyone, who might understand what it felt like to have your life detonated while you were still living in it. The cafe was small, clean, and smelled like roasted beans and pine. There were only a few people inside. And then I saw her, behind the counter, apron on, her hair tied back in a neat bun, pouring milk into a ceramic mug with this practiced, distracted grace. She was striking. Not flashy, but composed. Her movements were exact, careful. She looked like someone who didn't waste energy on things she couldn't control. When the customer left and the register was quiet, I stepped up. "Are you Harper?" She turned, a little caught off guard. "Yeah. Can I help you?" I hesitated for a beat. Then, "I think we need to talk. About Nolan." Her face changed instantly. It wasn't confusion. It was recognition. Not the kind that said, "Who are you?" but the kind that said, "Damn it, I was afraid of this." She didn't respond right away. Just walked out from behind the counter and pointed toward the back hallway. "Office. Come on." We sat across from each other in a small room filled with invoices, coffee beans, and a filing cabinet that had seen better days. "You're April's husband," she said flatly. I nodded. "Ethan." She rubbed her temples and gave a long exhale. I figured it was coming sooner or later. "How long have you known?" I asked. Harper gave a bitter smile. "Honestly, I've had suspicions for a while. He's not exactly subtle when he's lying. But I didn't know for sure until a few weeks ago. Found a parking receipt in his glove compartment for a hotel in Apex. That wasn't the first, either. I just didn't want to believe it." I handed her the envelope Leo had given me, photos, dates, even one of the audio transcripts. I had made a copy. I didn't come here to hurt her, but I knew if the roles were reversed, I'd want the truth laid out plain. She looked through it slowly. Not crying. Not shocked. Just absorbing. After a long minute, she closed the folder and set it aside. "Thank you," she said, voice quiet but firm. "You didn't have to bring this to me." "I wasn't sure if I should," I admitted. "But I know what it's like to feel insane. To doubt what you know in your gut just because someone's good at lying." She nodded. "Yeah. Nolan's an expert at that." We sat there for a while, saying nothing. Just breathing in the same air, two people who were strangers yesterday but suddenly connected by the same wound. Eventually I stood. "I'm filing for divorce." "Good," she said. "You deserve better." "So do you." As I left, she didn't try to hug me or offer some Hallmark sentiment. She just gave me a nod, a small, subtle gesture that said, "I see you. I get it." Later that night, she sent me a message. Just one line. "Thanks for not letting me feel crazy anymore." It broke something open in me. Because maybe I wasn't alone in this after all. I drove to Durham the following weekend. April's parents, Carla and Dennis, lived in a modest ranch home with trimmed hedges and a porch swing that hadn't moved in years. They knew something was wrong the moment they opened the door. Carla launched into questions before I'd even taken off my coat. When I told them what April had been doing, Carla snapped. She accused me of overreacting, of ruining a good family. I stayed calm and handed her printed texts, April's messages with her friend Sadie, full of crude jokes about Nolan's talents and how she wasn't stopping. Carla's expression broke. Dennis said nothing, just stared at the wall, jaw tight, eyes full of shame. The silence said everything. 3 weeks passed. April asked to meet, somewhere quiet. We sat on a borrowed porch overlooking a lake, surrounded by still water and dying summer heat. She looked worn down. Not angry, not defensive, just tired. She said she'd been lonely, scared of getting old, and Nolan had made her feel desired again. She asked for another chance, for therapy, for anything. I didn't raise my voice. I told her I forgave her, not to fix us, but so I could move forward without carrying her weight. I told her the divorce was already filed and all future contact would go through the attorneys. She nodded once. Then we just sat there, staring at the lake in silence. 8 months later, I bought that lake house. It's quiet here, peaceful in a way I didn't realize I needed. Ava started med school. Jake's thriving in fintech. They both keep in touch with April, but it's distant, birthday texts, nothing more. April's dating again. Sadie? Lost her job after someone anonymously sent her messages to the school board. Nolan's business dried up, website gone, social pages wiped. 2 years later, I ran into Harper at an art gallery in Chicago. We didn't say much, just shared a quiet look. Two people who'd been lied to, but survived anyway.